In a stunning political move that has sent shockwaves across the international community, Captain Ibrahim Traore has just announced Burkina Faso's immediate and complete withdrawal from the United Nations, calling the organization a neocolonial tool that has failed Africa for 60 years. This unprecedented decision comes after months of mounting frustration with UN inaction on African issues and what Traore describes as systematic bias against African sovereignty. We have taken note of what the United Nations has done to Africa, and unfortunately, our patience has run out, Traore declared during an emergency press conference in Ouagadougou. As of today, Burkina Faso officially withdraws from this corrupt organization that serves only Western interests. The announcement came as thousands of Burkinabe citizens gathered in the capital's central square, holding massive demonstrations in support of Traore's decision. Protesters could be heard chanting, "UN out, Africa first," and carrying banners reading, "60 years of UN failure, enough is enough." "We are here today to support our president's brave decision," declared Aminata Kabore, a university student leading the protests. "We are tired of the UN telling us how to govern our own country. We are tired of their peacekeepers who don't keep peace. We are tired of their aid that never reaches our people. We want true independence." The crowds in Ouagadougou have been described by witnesses as the largest pro-government demonstrations in Burkina Faso's recent history. Citizens from all walks of life, farmers, teachers, students, traders, united in their frustration with what they see as UN interference in African affairs. "We're tired because the UN has never solved a single African problem," shouted Mamadou Ouedraogo, a local businessman. "We're tired because their Security Council has no African permanent members. We're tired because they lecture us about democracy while supporting dictators. We want all African nations to follow Captain Traore's example." This dramatic decision comes on the heels of months of growing tensions between Burkina Faso and the UN. Sources close to the presidency revealed that the final straw came when the UN Security Council refused to condemn French military interference in West Africa while simultaneously criticizing Burkina Faso's cooperation with Russian advisors. According to government insiders, Traore had been planning this withdrawal for months, consulting with legal experts and African Union leaders about the implications. The announcement was deliberately timed to coincide with the UN's annual Africa Week, sending a powerful symbolic message about African independence. "Captain Traore has shown us what true leadership looks like," explained Dr. Fatima Ouattara, a political science professor at the University of Ouagadougou. "For too long, African leaders have begged for respect at the UN while getting nothing in return. Traore is saying enough. We'll chart our own course." Under mounting pressure from years of UN failures across Africa, from peacekeeping disasters in Mali to ineffective responses to terrorism in the Sahel, Traore found himself with overwhelming public support for this historic decision. The streets of Ouagadougou became the voice of African frustration, loud, relentless, and impossible to ignore. In a move described by analysts as both historic and politically brilliant, Traore didn't just withdraw from the UN, he announced the creation of the African Liberation Alliance, a new continental organization dedicated to African solutions for African problems, with headquarters in Ouagadougou. "We're not isolating ourselves," Traore clarified. "We're liberating ourselves. The African Liberation Alliance will work with any nation that respects African sovereignty, whether that's China, Russia, India, or even Western countries that are willing to treat us as equals." For many Burkinabe citizens, this wasn't just a diplomatic shift, it marked a potential turning point for a continent that has seen decades of unfulfilled UN promises and failed interventions. The announcement sparked scenes of jubilation across Ouagadougou, with thousands of Traore supporters unable to contain their joy. "This is the day we've been waiting for," cried Mariam Sawadogo, tears streaming down her face. "Captain Traore has freed us from the UN's chains. This is the end of neocolonialism. This is the beginning of true African independence." The celebration scenes were described by eyewitnesses as electric with emotion. People were crying, singing, and dancing in the streets, shouting phrases like "Traore the Liberator" and "Africa for Africans." Many believe this moment marks the end of a dark chapter of UN dependency and the dawn of a new era of African self-determination. Religious leaders across denominations have rallied behind Traore's decision. Imam Abdulrahman Ouedraogo declared during Friday prayers, "The UN has become like the money changers in the temple, corrupt and self-serving. Captain Traore has cleansed our nation of this corruption." Christian leaders have been equally supportive. Bishop Paul Ouedraogo stated, "What Captain Traore has done is biblical, leading his people out of slavery into the promised land of true independence. God is working through this young leader." This historic decision has reignited conversations about African sovereignty and self-determination across the continent. Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo has called for an emergency ECOWAS meeting to discuss the implications, while Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has remained notably silent, suggesting internal discussions about following Burkina Faso's example. "Captain Traore has opened Pandora's box," explained one diplomat based in Accra who requested anonymity. "If other African nations follow suit, the UN could face its biggest crisis since its founding. The organization simply cannot survive mass African withdrawal." The people's message was clear. Never again will we accept UN interference in our affairs. We do not ask for too much, just respect for our sovereignty. If the UN ever tries to impose sanctions on us again, the resistance will be total. Public reaction to Burkina Faso's UN withdrawal has been overwhelmingly jubilant across West Africa, especially among Pan-African activists and young people who see Traore as a new generation leader. Social media platforms have been flooded with celebratory messages, memes, and historical footage comparing Traore to liberation heroes like Thomas Sankara and Kwame Nkrumah. However, not everyone is celebrating. Some segments of the international community, especially those aligned with Western powers, view this as a destabilizing move that could undermine global governance structures. According to one analyst based in New York, Traore's withdrawal could trigger a domino effect that might fundamentally alter the UN's role in Africa. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has remained mostly silent since the announcement, but sources close to his office suggest that emergency consultations are ongoing regarding how to handle this unprecedented situation. Western diplomats are reportedly in panic mode, fearing that other African nations might follow suit. International reactions have been predictably mixed. Russia's President Vladimir Putin immediately congratulated Traore on his courageous decision to prioritize national sovereignty over institutional dependency. China's foreign ministry issued a statement supporting the right of all nations to choose their own path in international relations. The United States and European Union have been more cautious, with State Department spokesperson calling for dialogue and reconsideration, while stopping short of direct criticism. France's response has been notably muted, suggesting awareness that any aggressive reaction might backfire. So the question now stands, will Ibrahim Traore's withdrawal from the UN inspire a wave of African liberation from international institutions, or will it isolate Burkina Faso from the global community? Africa stands at a crossroads, and the coming weeks will be critical in defining the continent's relationship with global governance. Regional implications are already emerging. Mali and Niger have both requested urgent meetings with Traore to discuss potentially joining the African Liberation Alliance. Even traditionally pro-Western countries like Senegal and Côte d'Ivoire are reportedly reconsidering their UN relationships. This could be the beginning of the end for the UN as we know it, warned one international relations expert. If Africa, representing 54 of the UN's 193 member states, decides to chart its own course, the entire global governance system could collapse. We want to hear from you. Do you believe Traore's withdrawal from the UN will bring real change to Africa, or is it a dangerous gamble that could isolate Burkina Faso? Will other African nations follow his example? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for Fire News, where we bring you the unfiltered truth about Africa's rising leaders and the stories that are reshaping our continent. Stay tuned for more breaking coverage of this historic development. This is Fire News. African truth, African voices, African future.